I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got winners, give them a round of applause!
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
the combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot because this is
Okay? And now, clap your hands.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got winners, give them a round of applause!
with some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
the combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot because this is
Okay? And now, clap your hands.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got winners, give them a round of applause!
with some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
the combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learn a lot of things.
Okay? And now, clap your hands.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got a winner, let's give them a round of applause!
Now with some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
The combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned lots from them. I also learned a lot of things.
Okay? And now, clap your hands.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring?
Is shipped here.
Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got a winner, let's give them a round of applause!
now with some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to...
Oh, it's to share screen.
So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned lots from them. I also learned a lot of things.
Now, clap your hands.
Please put them working here.
Sound working as well.
But how about the... Oh, do you have to take the video? But how about the audio?
Yeah, does that work? Do we know?
Someone needs to try it. And people just listen to us. Probably. Oh, they're listening to us.
Nice.
Hello guys, we're trying to...
Changing people's way to get access to jobs, but there's skills. Come and ask any of us. The best thing you can do is just instead of
and stuff. I will hand over to speakers now because no one's here for sponsors other than hopefully you guys there and pizza and enjoy stuff. Thank you, Iris.
While we are preparing, so if you prepare your laptop, we do have like a sponsor, Infobit. Maybe they want to say something about Infobit. No. Hi. Hi. Good. Say hello. Hello. It has been a really difficult year, so without the sponsors, we weren't able to do it because we have to keep prices quite low, and we have to bring I put like 17 rooms in that hotel, so it means that the 17 people came from outside the country, so it's quite a big thing. So yeah, that wouldn't happen without you guys getting tickets and the sponsors sponsoring. But yeah, that's all. Are you ready for TypeScript?
Woo! Yes! Woo!
Yeah!
Hell yeah!
We need to connect the laptop to the screen and join the Zoom call. Yeah, while we're doing this, tomorrow we have like the paid pro workshops, and you still have a chance if you want to. But yeah, those starts around 9, and it's like you go back to university, so there's different classrooms every 3 hours. So you change the topic, and then we start around 9.
Sorry.
My voice.
That's amazing.
The conference starts at 9. If you can be like 8:45, we're gonna try to get you in quickly, and around 9:45 it's gonna be the first stop. And so yeah, it's gonna be a long day, and we have different rooms. So if you're a Vue.js developer, you don't care about React, you can go to the Vue.js room if you want to care about React.
I put in the top as well. I don't know which one.
You can move around the building, and you can.
There's like a bunch of like
So I'm going to go away.
different things.
Are you ready? Bye from me. Bye.
Woo! Bye.
All right. So yeah, I'll be talking about Simplexity, advanced TypeScript for pragmatic teams. Where did I get the word Simplexity from? I did a GCSE English paper many years ago where I had to write an entire answer about what do you think Simplexity means? And it's only now that I've come up with the answer. Who am I? I am Stephanie Shaw. I'm a senior front-end engineer here at Beamery, and TypeScript is my weapon of choice. If you want to know what my game of choice is, I'm a bit of a Tetris shark. If you want to talk to me about Tetris, I have some great stories to tell. But moving swiftly on, today I'm going to be talking about my weapon of choice, TypeScript, but also about how I use that as part of my day-to-day life as a real person. But before we get to boring old real people, let's have a think about, just for a moment, about what is your dream team? Like, imagine you could pick anybody you wanted in the world, alive or dead, to be on your development team. Pick Brendan Hyde, Dan Abramson. Maybe pick one of the CityJS speakers that's in the room today. Or if you're me, you'd be wanting to pick somebody who is on your same wavelength, has all of the same knowledge as you. I don't want to be wasting time with explanations. It's boring. I don't want to be having to deal with communication gaps. I want somebody who has charisma. I want a team up close, basically. Think about it. This is the real 10x developer, right? Like, no more communication gaps, no more, issues with people having not being as clever as I am. That's how I used to think. I think a little bit differently now, and that's probably a good thing because earlier today I brought down the production environment in Beamery, and hopefully I have a great team of real people around me who are able to help me out. Real teams are made up of real people, and this is my real team. And even if they take the time occasionally for my unique sort of choices, they're lovely people and they balance out my weaknesses. Hopefully, I balance out their weaknesses. We work together in a team. We're a global team. We're a remote team based in UK, Germany, and Brazil. And so naturally, there's cultural differences, there's communication gaps. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? But we somehow have to come through and, deliver on our our deadlines, on our feature deliveries. We're building quite a visible part of Beamery. We can talk to you about that later on if you're interested. But as a team, we've kind of decided what our priorities are. For our ideal code as a team, we want code that's flexible, that allows us to adapt existing patterns to new features so we can deliver quickly. We want code that's easy to read and understand. If you're based in remote time zones, you don't always have that instant feedback. It's really useful to be able to just read the code and understand what it's actually doing. And we like having documentation, so we don't just see a code for what it is, we're able to understand the what, how, and why, the story behind that code, basically. And as a team, we use TypeScript. We all love JavaScript. It's a great language for newbies to learn. It's so flexible. There's so many resources about it out there in the world. But as you all know, there are various idiosyncrasies with JavaScript that can make it a little bit overthrown, can make it slightly too flexible. And that's where TypeScript comes and steps in. Even with the basic level of TypeScript, just adding basic types to your talk can really unlock a lot of useful benefits, such as code completion, catching compile-time errors, things like that. But where TypeScript really comes into its own is when you get to the advanced hardcore features, right? But you know, what are we talking about by advanced features here? And I think I did a research on this, but I was and turns out like pretty much everybody has like a different definition of what like advanced TypeScript is. I'll give you my definition today of a definition speaker. I'd say like standard TypeScript is the stuff that I use like day to day in my role as a front-end engineer. Interfaces, type cases, intersection and union types, tuples, built-in utilities like pick, omit, required, that sort of thing. And then for me, advanced TypeScript is thing that makes me go, what? Or things that I literally only know about because I read the documentation while I was researching this talk. I was talking about things like discriminated union types. The first time we saw that in the Redux documentation for doing the Redux store, I'm like, oh my, how? It's magic. It's great. Things like template, literal types, conditional types, map types, infer keyword, keyoff keywords, function overloading, and as const. There's more. I don't have time to go into everything. I've got quite a few examples to share with you today, but rather than having to write out the same type like a million times, I can write something like nice and neat, like a generic type. I can write my own utilities. They're all very nice and concise, and it's like, yeah. I trained as a physicist originally, and I like clean solutions, like elegant code, elegant solutions. And TypeScript, I think, allows you to do a little bit of that. One of the other things that I really love about TypeScript is it aids discoverability. So I'm talking about if I'm looking at a React component for the first time, I don't have to look at the documentation for that component. I can just start typing prompts, and it will tell me, do you want me to code complete this? I can tell you what prompts are required. I can tell you what's needed. I can tell you about the different combinations without me having to actually go and look at that somewhere else. It helps me look at it right where I am, and that's convenient. But as you can see, some of these benefits are actually at odds with the things that my team values. How do we balance out the accuracy that we get from TypeScript with the flexibility that I need as a team to be able to develop things quickly? How do we balance out the conciseness and elegant neatness of TypeScript with being able to give somebody something that's really easy to read and understand, and not having to go through an entire walkthrough every time I need to hand over a task? And how do we balance discoverability, like the ease of being able to just say, my code is self-documenting? No, our team does not. our team does not think that way. We like documentation, especially when we see cultural gaps and time zones, because it allows us to fully understand not just what is there, like I can see what's there in front of me, I want to understand why it's there and how like I've come to that conclusion. So some examples of some of the things I'm talking about here. TypeScript can look really confusing. This is a type here. It makes it's a utility type that I've written. It makes every property in a type into a readable type. So maybe it's useful in some cases, but if I have to explain this to somebody who's more junior, they have to understand what a generic is. They have to understand what a conditional type is. They have to understand the keyword. They have to understand all sorts of things. It's even got a recursive conditional type in there. There's quite a lot to take in, and the name itself, reusability, it's not exactly descriptive. It doesn't tell me why and what circumstances I want to use this for. And so, to me, it makes sense because I've written it, but to someone else in my team, it's basically rocket science. And another case, basically, like TypeScript is just JavaScript in a trench coat, right? There's always a way to back out. There's an escape hatch, and I'm not saying that anybody would ever do that, but I mean, if you really wanted to, you might have a nice type all set up nicely, and then you just go, nah, I don't have time for that. As any, or if you're feeling fancy, as unknown, as character, right? I mean, I've never done that in my life. I don't know who would do that. But yeah, I'm going to show you actually a problem that I've been working on in the past week, but demo-wise, so it's not just any Beamery code in there. I've made a fun example for us to look at, and let's hope that the code is big enough on my screen for us to share. So the problem that I've been trying to solve last week is that we've got a list of achievements that we want to show to a user, for example. They're playing the game, they've got all these different achievements that they've unlocked, and they want somewhere to see them. And how many achievements are there? I don't know. There's a lot. And so I'm thinking, okay, how do I investigate? I don't want to have to write out like every single achievement. Like that would be so long, it would be so boring. There must be a really nice, fancy, advanced TypeScript way of solving this. And so I'm like, oh yes, let me make this required properties of utility type. Doing all sorts of fancy stuff. After I find out, actually this will make more sense if I actually explain what the domain of this was. So what we have is achievement metadata. So for each achievement, we have some optional fields and some required fields. Description, achieved that, achieved by, required, and then we have some like optional things that may be included, might not be included. For each achievement, we know what metadata is included, and it will be some sort of subset of any of these. And so when I'm making my type here, then as we can see, I'm saying, okay, so I want to be able to have like a utility type to help me construct achievement, because I'll need to build like a type for every single one of these achievements. So then when I need to use it, I'll know exactly which metadata is required or not. It might not be the same ones that are on my original object. And so I've made a bunch here, and sure enough, if I want to instantiate this, this is based on the real story, by the way, then it tells me, oh, you've got one of, this doesn't have requirements on, and so I can comment that out. And so yeah, I didn't have to read any documentation about that, but it's helped me to construct the right object, which is great, it's lovely. And then I have to try and add a new one. And let's say for this one here, then I've been told that this doesn't have any optional fields on, so this one only has description, achieved that, and achieved by, and it doesn't have any of these. And so I'm like, right, I'm going to create this, but it's giving me an error. And I'm like, oh no, what do I do now? There's something wrong with my types here. Now imagine I had to suddenly leave to go and defeat the brain-eating fungus on a surgery in December, and I have to hand over this sort of code to a colleague of mine. They're going to be very confused trying to read through this and understand, like, how do I fix it? As it turns out, like, I mean, I know because I wrote this, I can fix it by just adding equals never. And then that fixes my immediate problem. Great, problem solved. I can solve that in 2 seconds. That would probably take a colleague of mine like a day, maybe, like just to try and unpick everything that I was doing. Eventually I get told, so we need to add like 50 other achievements. I'm like, oh my God, like, no, what? I can't create all these types. Like, what are we doing this for? What are we doing this for? It turns out I completely misunderstood the problem. We don't actually ever create the objects on the front end. All of the objects that we need are created in the back end. They get passed to us exactly as they need to be. We can just show whatever data we need just using basically a null coalesce. Like if it has a dungeon, just show the dungeon. That's all we need. And so I spent all this time creating all these types for no reason, because I love solving problems and I love being clever. Let that be a cautionary tale for all of you. Oh, no, that's not the one. Ooh, there we go. Right, so yeah, death by a million types. I have to, unfortunately, it really kicked my ass, right? So unfortunately, I was able to read back to that and get through it. But the problem that I did here is that I wasn't solving the right problem. I wanted to. I was writing a talk about advanced TypeScript, and so I was like, I'm going to use advanced TypeScript. That was not the right tool for the problem. It's really important that when you're using these sorts of concepts, you're choosing to use it for the right reason and you're aiming at the right level. So what other cheat codes do we have for using advanced TypeScript in a pragmatic team? I usually recommend avoid the high traffic codes. In a regular development team, like usually you'll find that it's the more junior engineers who are doing most of the legwork, and the senior and principal engineers who are solving like the very difficult problems and perhaps not writing as much code. And given that situation, you want to make sure that the high traffic code, which is the stuff that a lot more junior and mid-level engineers will be looking at, is as easy to understand as possible and doesn't require like constant supervision by some like big brain genius who's decided to use all sorts of advanced TypeScript stuff. So I'd say good candidates for like using advanced TypeScript things is probably things like libraries and reusable utilities, which are black boxes. So I can get the benefits of that as a more junior engineer without having to actually see like how the sausage is made. For things that are high traffic, so things that are actively adding new features that are, let's be honest, very honest, like very likely to be copied and pasted, then you want to make sure that the developers who are actually doing that understand the code that they're doing. I think we've all been a junior engineer who's copied and pasted something off Stack Overflow and thought, yeah, I mean, it compiles, it's probably fine, right? We don't want to have that situation, especially in our own code bases, right? If you're going to know that your code is going to be copy pasted, you want to make sure it's quality code, right? That people are able to understand. Another one will be guiding others to success. TypeScript is very good at, like I said, in terms of the discoverability, like I love being able to just see what props I need on a component or what arguments I need to pass into a function without having to read a big old document about it. So I've got an example here where I've written a component here. It's got a quite a specific state. So if it's loading, I don't need to pass in any additional arguments. But if it's not loading, then I think achievement needs to be required. With this snippet, we can see that when we set it as loading, that works, but when we set it as loading as false, then it gives us an error, and that kind of gives me a clue about how I use this. In the background, this is using a discriminated union type. I think a lot of people associate them with string properties as the discriminator, but you can also use it with things like booleans as well. So this is a neat little pattern that I've come up with. Proactive code reviews. I think sometimes I'll be doing a PR and I'll be going to town. I'll put in all sorts of nonsense in there, like crazy TypeScript. Maybe the PR is like 50 files long, and then basically this is what my PR looks like, right? It's a disaster waiting to happen, and then I get a review that'd be like, yeah, that's good to me. Yeah, let's go. If that happens, like, I mean, however tempting is you, like, oh my god, I thought no one would take this. Let's merge it in before people realize, no, stop. And like, if you kind of like think there was something really controversial in here or something that's potentially confusing, and nobody's actually raised it with me in a code review, proactively ask them about it. I mean, you can add comments to your own code reviews, right? Like, I can put on my PR, like, have a look at this particular code. What do you think? Like, is this understandable? You can have like an in-person code review where you can like walk through the PR together and make sure that people are actually seeing what you feel are the important things. I think that's something which people forget sometimes is that it's not just a matter of, I've got the reviews and now I'm going to merge it like YOLO. You can actually have a cooperative process and be the critic of your own code as well. So yeah, out of like all of the advanced TypeScript concepts that I mentioned earlier, there's only 3 that I really like use on a day-to-day basis. Got discriminated union types, as I've mentioned, with my nice loading state. Keyword, it's just useful in general. And as const, as a front-end engineer, like often will be taking like values that would be like enum or a string union type and wanting to show that in a drop-down list, for example. And so having it already there as an array and then having it as const after it and then being able to use keyword is a really cool pattern. It's really useful. And hopefully it's simple enough. All 3 of these are hopefully simple enough that you can explain them like in half an hour to somebody who's never approached them before. So that's what I use day to day in my pragmatic team. And really, like, if I had to sum this up, you know what's coming next. The golden rule is keep it simple, stupid, right? There's a reason why it's a classic. We have a, you can sum up the entire talk that was given in this meme here. Like, the wise thing to do is to write simple code, right? I think the x-axis here is IQ score is pseudoscientific nonsense. I think I would think of it more in terms of experience points. As an engineer with lots of experience points and wisdom, then I know that day to day, often doing things that are too fancy, too complex, causes more problems than it solves. Not necessarily just in terms of the code, but in terms of like making sure that my team as a whole is successful, rather than just me proving that I'm clever or able to solve problems in the quickest way. I met junior engineers who have been able to come to this wise conclusion much earlier than I did in my career. And one of the wisest things you can do is learn from other people's mistakes as well. So yeah, I mean, write simple code, keep it simple, stupid, and that's game over from me. So thank you very much. I think if you, so you can connect with me LinkedIn, GitHub, and do have a chat with me later if you want to hear more about how Beamery solves real problems such as unconscious bias in hiring and also leveling up all of the engineers and both junior and senior around us. Thank you very much.
Any questions? No questions? That's a good thing. So yeah, we have one more speaker. Thank you, Stephanie. Ruben gave a talk. He likes a lot of micro front ends, right? Who likes micro front ends here? Who likes module federation? Yeah, we have with us Zach, that he's the module federation creator. You can get with him. But we have also some other people from the lineup, like Tezas. Where's Tezas? Yeah, Zach. And we have Daniels. We have 2 Daniels.
We have 2
Daniel and Daniel. They both speak Portuguese.
Vai Brasil!
And they can't understand each other.
Most times.
The classic Portuguese. And yeah, we have like a few people that speak Portuguese, but yeah, the Spanish and the
I have a few.
don't understand each other.
Just looking at you, man.
Is that right?
Sarah.
Yes.
So, can you connect to the Zoom call?
We're all going to Nando's.
No Portuguese. We need a Zoom call.
Like you all think that I'm gonna
Let's
do
see
it.
how we
No
get
offense to
that.
my guys.
Who gets angry?
So I'm going to keep making talks while you're connected to the Zoom call. So, yeah, tomorrow we do have like a React TypeScript workshop. So you have a few hours to do everything that you want to do. That's sales, marketing, like an advertisement. Yeah, so this is a great space. I don't know if you saw the view from the window. So then I imagine that when people come into this office, the first comments the view and then they go to work, right? Is that right? No? And yeah, are these like place where you schedule the meetings. Is that right? So we can do a review. Yes, it was really nice. I'm happy that we are able to keep coming back. So yeah, that was my main talk while we were preparing. We're ready to hear more about state managers. Not the real managers, state managers. Right? Okay, I give you to
Awesome work, guys. I think it's great. I like the Hey, so we're going to talk about state managers. Why not? Let's answer some questions. Today we're going to answer the questions that we see here. We're going to see if, do you need a state manager, what state managers and contents are, is PHP better all along, or maybe we're just going to answer any questions. I'm just going to tell you a story of how I hate state manager. Okay, let's see. It's not just a React query. Last time I went to Meetup, I was like, oh, this is a React query, really interesting, but this is not just another React query or Remix talk. We're going to go to my name is Ruben Casas. I am staff engineer at Postman. Remember me from talks at React Advanced, and also at QCon, and also a talk that I did at CityJS in 2022, where I was presenting to a group of people at the after party about microcontents. They probably were a bit tipsy, a bit drunk, and they didn't get anything of what I was talking about. But yeah, I decided, let's not talk about microcontents. Let's talk about something simpler, which is state management. That's way simpler than microcontents, of course not. And this is my journey through that state managers maze, and how I discovered state managers, and how it became a rite of passage for me to discover all of these things and come tonight today and say, you can do it. Welcome to 2022. That was a really cool song. Mr. Bean was the really, really main act in the London Olympics. And that guy did the ultimate bungee jump from space. Everyone remembers? Nobody knew what a selfie was in 2012. Yeah, so welcome to 2012. I was an engineering student at the University of Brighton. And I got this task, an assignment to create a CMS in PHP. Exciting. These are the features that CMS had to create. You have to create posts. You need to use a text editor, which was based on TinyXE, a really cool library. I think it's quite old school, but still holding up today. I have to save the posts to the database, and I have to publish them. But this feature here, the auto-save, basically I will be writing a post, and then it will automatically save on the database. But if any of you work with PHP, you know that you refresh the page, right? So, actually, any PHP developers? Awesome. No, I love PHP. Come on, let's go on the Lambo. Where's the Lambo? So you have to refresh the page. So it's like, oh, how do I do that? How do I refresh the page? How do I save the database without refreshing the page, making a form submission? So I discovered something really cool called Ajax. Not the football team. By the way, I took that picture last week. I was in Amsterdam and I went to the Ajax stadium. They're not doing very well. But not Ajax, the team, Ajax, the grandfather of Fetch. Well, before Fetch, Ajax was a thing where you just send HTTP requests with JavaScript. And it was really cool. And I was like, awesome, this is going to solve my problems. I am going to use Ajax to save on the database. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning one day, trying to make it work, and then managed to make it work. And then I screamed. Well, actually, I didn't scream because I didn't want to wake my roommate. But I was like, it worked. It was so complicated, and I made it work. But why was it so complicated? The thing that was complicated was that I had to synchronize now my client state with the server state. And I didn't know that because I wanted to synchronize with the database. But I have now a client, the editor. So my state, I realized that my state now resides in 2 places. One is the client, one is the server. Onwards to 2014, everybody knows what a selfie is. I can't believe that picture is 10 years old. Do you feel old yet? Come on, that's 10 years ago. And then I discovered something else called AngularJS, the original. Any Angular developers? Hey, you've been PHP Angular. Yeah. I discovered AngularJS, and it was amazing. I was like, it blew my mind. I was like, oh, two-way data binding. I can synchronize my DOM with JavaScript, and it's awesome, great. And I was tasked, it felt like magic. So I started using AngularJS on your typical web application. You know, very, very simple stuff. You display a list, you delete an item from the list, but also you persist that data, so it works offline. But also, you get real-time data, and also, you have to handle conflict resolution. I don't know how I made it work, but trust me, the application wasn't quite right. It was an absolute mess. It was my first job, and I was like, it works, but customer was like, wow, I delete an item and it appears again on the screen. Also, there feels buggy. Just two-way data binding wasn't a good idea after all. It was really random. Things will just randomly appear, disappear on the screen. And the code base was huge because I had to handle all these conditions. So I kept writing more and more and more code to make it work. The thing is, I didn't know that I needed a state manager. My client state was getting out of whack closing with my server state. 2016, no more pop culture references. I discovered React. Yay!
Okay, we're just gonna do
The best front-end
but
library ever created. React is, the definition is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces. And it had this really cool thing about the one-way data flow where UI equals function of state. And you can manage your data, like the state changes, the data changes, your UI changes. Revolutionary. I love React. I owe my career to React. It was awesome. There was one problem.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
JavaScript is a JavaScript library for building user interfaces, but it's not a library for managing your state. And the real data flow was no one-way data flow. Well, it was a one-way data flow, but on the client, you get this one-way data flow. But actually, when you build applications, you don't build applications just on the client, unless it's just a very simple app. You, at some point, want to persist something on the server. So the problem is that promise, broken promise of React, was that it will give you a one-way data flow, but someone forgot that that's not how the web works. You have servers. So I started having problems with React as well. My state was getting out of sync with my server again, my server state. I was back to square one, so Angular was way better. React was good, but we still have something missing. Enter Redux. So the solution, because React was not a library for managing your state, then Redux came out, and we're going to solve that problem. Also, Mobex and Suscan and Crystals and Jupyter and Apollo, and etc. The fact that we have so many state managers tells you something. Like we're trying to solve the same problem. And fun fact, Redux is very popular. I mean, Redux toolkit to these days, pretty good. But I have done a lot of interviews recently, and it's funny that when I ask someone about state management, the first thing that they come up with is Redux. I'm like, interesting. So Redux became like, it's a state manager, and if you need a state manager, sometimes you go to Redux. The problem with Redux is, dude, I just wanted to fetch some data. It's so complicated. This is a fake tweet, by the way. This is fake. His account is now private. You cannot use some presentations anymore. But you can, take the traditional React talk when you show it down to I just wanted to fetch some data, but for me to fetch some data, I had to create my action reducers, etc., etc. You're probably familiar with how complicated everything became. And I just wanted to fetch some data. But the problem here is all these state managers, all these libraries were trying to solve the problem in the wrong place. We're trying to use client-side state managers to solve a server-side state problem. So let's first just define what is a state, server state or client state. I mentioned that the definition is what server or remote state is. is data that is persisted. So if you want to, at some point on your application, persist something, say on the database, and you fetch it over the network, or you connect to the database directly, whatever, that data is persisted. That is what I call, or the definition of server state, or remote state. It's persisted somewhere. What is client local state is anything that is ephemeral. So if you refresh your browser and you lose that data, it's not going to be a big problem. Like a drop down is open, you refresh the browser, the drop down is closed, I click again, little toggle, small things here and there on the UI that is ephemeral. Now, why was this not a problem before? So why, from glorious PHP days when we just send the form, and why it was not that problem? What didn't have a lot of state managers before? Well, the reason for that is rendering data is very, very simple. Like you can just display a list. That's very simple to do. The problem is when an action mutates that data, and we make changes. And we realized we just wanted to display the data and sometimes make some changes. But that's the problem. It became very, very complicated. And the web is simple. I mean, literally, this is how the web works. You server sends some data to the client client displays the data, the client makes, or the user makes an action, you submit a form, you reload the page, and you display the most up-to-date data. Your server data is always up-to-date with the client. Oh, but what happens? Well, single-page applications like React, Angular, all of them introduce this client-side concept where we do a lot of stuff in the client now, and it made this model, simple web model, way, way more complicated. But there is a simple way. I'm here to tell you about it. Well, there are some solutions out there that you can use to manage your server state. So let's stay with server state for now. So if we talk about server state, for you to manage your server state, you can use tools like React queries, query, and now Remix has some tools called loaders and actions. And now React is more towards React server components, server actions. So we are moving all of that server state where it belongs, the server, or in the case of React queries, yeah, you get the idea. The remote state is not inside the client, because the client state is for client. So all of these solutions, what they do is they manage your server state and keep your UI, your client, in sync with that remote data. And the key here is without a full page refresh. So the whole problem, all of these problems with state managers come because we don't want to refresh the page, because that's bad UX. And these days, you don't want to be like submitting a form, hitting the server, waiting, and all my client data has to be recreated. So all of this happen because we want to refresh the page. So these solutions that I just mentioned help you synchronize that remote state with your UI without and keeping the no refresh single page application behavior. So this is what Remix does. Remix has the concept of the loaders and actions, where a loader will always keep your data up to date with the server. The user makes a change or submits an action or a form, and your remote state is always in sync with your local state, which is your client. Awesome. So we are back. Best of both worlds. Yeah, PHP is back, baby. We are back to having a really good user experience without so much of the bloat and so much of the boilerplate that we had to do when we put the state managers in the client. What about the client-side state, you ask? Well, sometimes you will need client-side state, and sometimes there will be cases where you have a lot of ephemeral state. And some of those cases will be like you have something in draft, you make a lot of changes before submitting, or saving it on the database, and it doesn't have to be a form, by the way. And forms are great for this, but there are some cases where it's not a form. Multiple user interactions happen at the same time. Data is constantly updated real time. Conflict resolution, reconciliation. Basically, the application I have to build on AngularJS needed a state manager from the client. And examples, go to your VS Code editor. You'll be surprised how much client-side state is on that. A lot gets saved on your computer, on your laptop, but a lot of client state happening. How many tabs are open, all of the stuff. Whiteboard apps, skill draw. Yay! and we're talking about that we'll do earlier. So, this is the best example for a client-side heavy state app, whiteboard diagram, real-time and multiplayer, party key, no code designer tools. All of these are really, really client-side heavy. So in those cases, state management libraries are of course very helpful, as long as you are aware when you cross the boundary. So as soon as you move to the server state, then you need to be aware of that, because you will have to synchronize your client state with your server state. So conclusion, don't use a client-side state management solution to solve a server-side state problem. Don't use Redux to solve your server-side state. Use Redux if you want to use your client-side state, or just use any other tool. Redux. Using MOX is also really good. Do you need a state manager for the server side? Yes. For the client side, as usual, senior developers, it depends. Is your client side data simple? Just don't need it, really, just use states, use producer. And if that's getting complicated, then just reach out to this client side apps. What I'm doing now, Postman, is interesting because we are in that middle ground. We are like very similar to VS Code and how VS Code works, because it's a lot of client-side state, but we have to persist on the database, but we are not kind of a multi-campus application, so we're in that middle. And synchronizing with your server remote state is the tricky part. But if you can make it work, there are libraries that can help you doing that. You can just make sure that you have those separated and it works very well. Awesome. So thank you very much. Any questions? You don't have questions.
So just the slides of the next speaker.
Any questions? It's going to be okay. It's just a story.
So what's your favorite state manager? No state manager? But who's you still using Redux?
Tenemos un top here.
Stately? Is it stately? The
X-state.
X-state, yeah. Okay, so we have another speaker. Alvin. Alvin is like very historic speaker.
Story?
Can you guess why? Can somebody guess why? He's a very well connected speaker in the conference.
Who's the first speaker?
Do you know why?
Yes. Today's his birthday?
No.
He was the first CityJS speaker.
He was the first CityJS speaker.
Woo!
Share your screen. Oh fuck.
Open.
You need to share your screen on the Streamlabs. On the StreamYard.
Welcome back, Ruben. So yeah, this is the last talk. You have to finish all the pizzas before we go. We don't waste the food here.
Oh no!
And then we will go to the pub. So, again, Admiral. Something Admiral, yeah, something with Admiral. It's not something.
Just follow us.
It's artillery almost. Yeah, not Admiral. I don't know why.
Heroes?
Nothing to do with the army. No. Although here there is like an army base behind here, but nothing to do with that. Okay. My microphone.
Okay, so that's cool. This talk is called How Computers Draw.
Likes to walk.
Before I get fancy, it's about the invisible part of line drawing algorithm. So who's this guy? I'm a developer advocate. I work for a company called Unleash, where we do feature flags, open source, feature flags are great. As I was said, in the very first CityJS, I was the first speaker and I did the first talk. And this was one of the slides. So I live coded shaders at 10 a.m. on a Monday, and now it's 9 p.m. on a Wednesday, and I'm going to talk to you about obscure line stuff. Let's go. So let's nerd out on some interesting things. So there's two things I want to talk about. When you open like your Figma or whatever, just two tools that I want to tell you some stuff about. The pencil first, and then the pen tools, like when you're. So let's start with the pencil. This. So what happens here? You notice that when I draw, it's not exactly what I'm drawing gets displayed. It kind of gets smoothed out. So if you ever wonder how it works, that's what we're going to find out. Okay. So you can do it the naive way, right? You can just see every time I move my mouse, I add points, and then they scroll out. Except if you do it, it's not really what happens, right? Like it's kind of angular. It's a bit like kind of like drawing with paint or like a really old thing like that. So we can try to remove points that are too close and see what happens, but then things can get either more angular or even more organic, but it's not there yet. What you want is, what if there was a way to go through all these points, which is keep it smooth, just like Figma's doing. And there is something called spline. So some of you heard of that in the drawing software or whatever, but like, it's just a type curve. And there's loads of types of curves. But the one that's interesting for us tonight is it's called Catmull Rollins, and it's named after this guy, who's the co-founder of Pixar. So your CEO, CTO type things will know him about this for all his business stuff and his best-selling book and all of that stuff. But for us, it's more like he was doing some nerdy stuff at Lucasfilm back in the pre-internet days. I'm not going to tell you about how these splines work. I don't know. I mostly use an NPM package like everybody else. But just trust me that like if you hit at some points, it curves. And that's it. That's the spline. And it's used in various things. The number one thing where you might have used it as a JavaScript developer is with graphs, right? So P3, for example. Catmull Run is one of the options you have, because if you make a line chart, or in this case like an area chart, if you want to make it smoother, you just add. You just press this magic button, use this curve, and it's smooth. It's used in movement, like if you have a train on a rail track, or it's very wide. I couldn't get that thing to work in time. Yeah. So if you want to have a little train animated on the rail track, and all of that, it's also the Catmull curve. And those splines. Moving on. The pen tool. So this one is also a little different, right? It's like you see that I draw, I add a point, and then I add another point, and then what happens if I drag? It curves, right? And notice it curves gives me these handles. With these handles, I can control like how curvy I guess it is. So how does that work? There's one way to try to make something smoother, which is just add a midpoint and drag around, but that's not exactly what's happening. This is what Scotty Draw is doing. I just realized we have someone from TL Draw here, which I could have used, but anyway, they go really deep on that stuff. Like there's a talk called Arrows at Length from Steve, who they go really deep into that stuff and they do a lot of work around that. So if you're interested in that, I really recommend you to watch it. So that's not quite what's happening. To recap, what happens, you have these two handles, right? That like you can drag and then you make it's more of a curve. And that's what's called the Bezier curve. They're named by another old guy. Doesn't really matter. Some of you used them before. You've used them all in SVGs. So if you look at the SVG, before the first line break, there's a path. It doesn't really matter what it says, but there's one of the letters C, and this is for like cubic Bezier, which we'll learn about later. So that's what a lot of SVGs are made of. So how do they work? First, we have to understand something called linear interpolation, which is just a fancy way of saying you go from one value to another. Right? it's just a function that you give it two values, and that t value is that personage basically. It lets you go from one value to another. And this is used in various places, but that's it. In this case, I go from one end to another, move an x, give it that value in the story. That's basically what it is. So the way basic curves work is, sorry, so there's another example of like interpolation values. You can use it for like more than one. The way basic curves work is, now this is a bit complicated, but hear me out. So the curve, the red curve, is being drawn by interpolating from the first point at the all the way to the right to the point all the way to the left. And what you're doing is you're interpolating, as you can see that the line being drawn. This is what's happening. Basically. So that's with one angle. So we saw earlier there's two, and again you can interpolate. If you add 2 points, it's even more complicated. But that doesn't really matter because again, I need the code for you. But TLDR is this is what happens when you have two handles. This is why it's such a weird way that how you control the curvature of it. Because when you draw, when you drag one of the points, what happens is this is how you're kind of indirectly influencing how the curve is. And it's used in CSS, and this is why if you use that, it should be busy, and this is why it's so intuitive. Because these four values, they're not the beginning and the end of the curve, they're the control points. And this is why it makes no sense. Because when you're trying to move, you're not moving the line itself, you're moving the thing that makes the curves. And it's used in fonts as well. So what's happening here is I'm moving one of the handle, but it stays, the curve stays the same, because what you see in yellow are these control points I mentioned earlier. So yeah, so your fonts, your glyphs are actually made up out of these basic curves. And that's it. It's a tool we use all the time, and I guess we knew there was so much crazy stuff in it. That's it. It's late enough as it is. If you have any questions, hit me up later. Welcome to London.
A very quick time. But yeah, we're done for today.
Good night.
So you can now go in the pub and get smashed. Or like you can say 6 packs. And yeah, just a very big thank you to this man Simon and Beamery. And we're going to continue tomorrow. There's no talks tomorrow, just workshops. But I just told you, still have a chance, and some small, like 1 or 2. And yeah, tomorrow our speakers are going to get a big rest, and then they're going to get ready for Friday. So yeah, I cannot wait. Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone. That's it.
See you guys.